welcome to Game Glyph. This is 3 bad fighting games in the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. First game I want to talk about is a game that isn't even really finished. It's a terrible, terrible game. It was kind of slowed down by some controversy. Made by a company called Black Pearl, never even heard of them. And Incredible Technologies, and they are really presumptuous to use that name, because this game is anything less than solid. This is Time Killers on the Sega Genesis. It's a 2-player fighting game with the worst sound effects and the most undesirable character selections you could ever possibly imagine. So I'm going to pick the worst one, the one that appeals to me the least out of all these. It's kind of hard to choose, right? So I'm going to pick Thug! He's like a caveman dude. He's terrible. He looks stupid. He is stupid. This game is terrible. Look at the graphics. Look how uninspired this is. It looks like it was made by some little kid in MS Paint. The sound is unbelievably horrendous in this game. It's not just the recording. The sound in this game is tremendously bad. I just totally hawked a loogie at this samurai, who's in green, so he must be wearing his loogie armor. But the game basically revolves around you mashing buttons. And you can block, of course, which is kind of pointless in this game because you're not going to want to play it long enough to even defend against attacks. But you can rip off and cut off the limbs of your opponents and even decapitate them at the end of the rounds or during the round. So you could technically defeat an enemy in just a few hits in this game, and then boom, the round's over. Kind of like that right there. He just made mincemeat of me. And this guy is so hard. The game is really unforgiving. There's not really a lot of incentive to keep playing because none of the characters are interesting at all. There's no real storyline in this game. So all you really do is just try to chop the crap out of each other's limbs off and bludgeon each other. And I just can't get over how incredibly just terrible this game is. And I remember being a kid and reading about this in GamePro, like when it was going to come out, and being excited about it. And man, was I disappointed because there was nothing to be excited about in this game when it finally came out. It is just horrendously awful, and it's definitely one of the worst fighting games I've ever played. There's a lot of really bad fighting games in the Sega Genesis. In fact, even though the Sega Genesis may be my ultimate favorite game system of all time, there's a lot of really bad games on the Sega Genesis. The music is ridiculous in this part. Like, what am I excited about? I just lost. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to pick somebody that appeals to me somehow even less. This purple dude that doesn't make any sense. Like, what were they thinking when they created these characters? Like, who is this going to appeal to? No one, I can assure you. So I did a little better in this round, but I was just mashing buttons. But at one point, I managed to bite off this guy's arm right here. Woo! I did something. I've never gotten really far in this game. I never really wanted to come back and play it. It's not a good game. It's not even that fun to play. But this is Time Killers on the Sega Genesis. It came out in 1993, one of the later games to come out on the console. And I don't think that it was very popular, to say the least, because it's freaking terrible. I mean, look at it. Listen to it. The overly compressed music, the overly compressed vocals, the trite controls with terrible collision detection. Really weird character designs that I can't even imagine who this would possibly appeal to. It's ugly. The screen is ugly. I can't believe I won. I didn't even want to win. And what was that sound? That just really loud, obnoxious sounds plagued this game. And for some reason, when you defeat an enemy, it takes you back to the character select screen. So in case you want to play as somebody else, which is kind of weird. I've never seen that in a fighting game. But look at this dork. And he's supposed to be like King Arthur because after he defeats you, listen, Excalibur, or is he saying Calabash? I'm not really sure. Look how terrible that background static image is. That looks like MS Paint crap. That is terrible. That's like 16 colors. This is an awful, awful, awful attempt of a fighting game, and I wouldn't even try to play it. I wouldn't even pretend to be interested. I mean, that part was kind of cool, I guess, but Mortal Kombat did this all so much better and looked better doing it. So this is Time Killers on the Sega Genesis, a truly terrible game. The next game I want to talk about is a game that I actually kind of weirdly like, and it's Primal Rage, even though I know it's a bad game. It was really cool in the arcade. It had awesome, huge sprites in the arcade, and it just looked really neat, and the idea of dinosaurs and giant apes fighting each other was just really cool to a little teenage kid like me that was into Godzilla and King Kong and stuff at the time. And this game has a really weird control scheme because unlike using Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat style controls to execute your projectile attacks or your special commands, you have to hold either all 3 punches or all 3 kicks or a combination thereof, and then you do a combination of directional buttons to try to pull off some kind of weird projectile attack. It's really hard. I can't really do it. It's probably easier if you have a joystick, and this is definitely a game that really, really requires the 6 button. This is probably a game that no one's going to want to ever play. They never brought this franchise back. This is definitely a dead franchise. It was put out by Probe. It was also put on a million different game systems. I mean, I remember this game coming out on Sega Saturn. It came out on 32X, came out on PlayStation, came out on Super Nintendo. I think it even came out on the Atari Jaguar, which I couldn't even imagine. Probably the Atari Jaguar CD, which is like the toilet of gaming systems. It even kind of looks like one. But this game is terrible in this format. It was great in the arcade, but this port is awful. The sound is terrible. The graphics are washed out looking. All the sprites for the characters are shrunk down and compressed. I can't get over how washed out these backgrounds are. I mean, I swear this company Probe doesn't even try. They just get a port, they make it to where it's barely playable, and they put it out, and boom, that's the end of the game. I used to be pretty good at this game as a kid, but then when I got back to playing it now as an adult, as an old man that I am, it just sucks. I can't convey to you how bad this game sucks. I would not pick up and play this game at any point in time. I'll hopefully never have to touch this game again. I don't want to do a super thorough review of this game. Unless I can purchase it maybe for the Sega Saturn. I might play through that version of the game just to see if it's any better, because the 32X version of this game sucks too. The music in the arcade was really cool. It was atmospheric. The graphics, like I said, were really sharp, and they looked kind of claymation/digitized. And what was neat about this game is you have these little worshiper human creatures that kind of worship you like you're these deity gods or whatever, and you can actually pick them up and kill them on accident and trample over them and eat them and do things with them. And of course, being that it's a 90s fighting game, once you defeat your opponent, there's an opportunity to do a fatality-like move. I have literally never pulled this off in my entire life. I can't imagine what these look like. They probably look kind of cool in the arcade, but they probably look like absolute crap in this version. This game did not hold up in time, and I have to say that this is a truly awful game for the Sega Genesis, and this is Primal Rage, and it is not that good, so why don't you check it out here for a minute. What's cool is after you defeat it, it shows this picture of the Earth. So you try to conquer the planet by defeating your enemies, which was a neat, novel idea at the time. I thought it was kind of cool. I just don't like this game because it's really boring to play, and I hate the way the special moves work in this game. How you have to hold down buttons. That's stupid. Oh my god, this guy Vertigo, who just happened to be the second opponent that I fight in this, he is so freaking hard. What kind of dinosaur can do what he does? He's like a Dilophosaurus Velociraptor mix, I guess, but he's got a spike tail, and he's kind of the scorpion of this game, so he's really cheap. Get over here with that little spike move, even though it doesn't really do a lot of damage. But this game, I can't tell you how boring and abysmal it is. Do not play it. Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Genesis. What are you talking about? That can't be real. It is real. This is one of those last, ditch Sega Genesis games. It came out, obviously, after the 32X version of Virtua Fighter came out, which is a pretty decent port of that game. It's inferior, of course, to the Virtua Fighter remix on the Sega Saturn. But this game, I don't know why it exists. I don't know who it appeals to. It's really slow, and the jumps are super floaty, as you would expect from Virtua Fighter. I like Virtua Fighter a lot. I'm one of the few people that still play these games, even though I know they're really archaic, and there's really no place for these type of games anymore, considering games like, Street Fighter 20 and Mortal Kombat 3000 and Tekken 90 and all that kind of stuff. There's just so many, better fighting games than Virtua Fighter out there. Dead or Alive kind of took the place of this. But back in the day, I rented this game on Sega Genesis because it blew me away, because I had already had a Sega Saturn. I had this game on Sega Saturn, and I played it quite a bit. So I rented it on a Sega Genesis. So I was like, well, what the heck is this going to look like? And I was kind of impressed, because you can still do the ring outs and stuff in this game. And the graphics were pretty decent, and there's some interesting parallax scrolling occurring here. I can't really tell if the graphics are polygonal or just really, really clever sprite work. And I always like playing Akira, just because, he's Akira, like from the anime, even though he's a completely different character. And that's apparently a really common name in Japan, like John or Joshua over here. But it's a decent little port of the fighting game. I don't know who would really want to play this game. I guess if you were some die-hard Virtua Fighter fan and you just didn't have a Sega Saturn and you couldn't get to an arcade, you would play this and you'd be like, okay, this exists. It's not that great, but it's not a bad game either. In fact, out of all 3 fighting games that I did for this video, this is definitely the best one, which I know is terribly, terribly sad. It's a fun game. I don't think that, there's any reason to go back and play it. I was impressed that they managed to get all the characters in here. The music was pretty good. The sound effects were pretty good. It sounded like, Virtua Fighter. But, I would rather play Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition or Mortal Kombat 2 on the Sega Genesis. Honestly, I'd rather even play Primal Rage almost in this game just because it's super weird and it's just kind of neat to look at, or Eternal Champions. It's better than Pit Fighter, I'll say that. I won't even review that game. That game is pure suck. It's been done to death on the internet. There's no reason for me to look at that game. And I really appreciate you guys checking out this video. I'm going to do a bunch of kind of like 3 of this and 3 of that videos, and that's what I do in this channel now. And I'm getting on my stride here with my videos. I'm having a lot of fun doing them. I'm doing them kind of quick, trying to be a little more prolific with them. I hope you like them. This chick, Pie, just kicks my ass every time. I remember that even in the arcade. I'd be feeling pretty good about myself, and then I'd go to fight her, and she would just beat my ass. She is so good, so fast and slick. And then she laughs at you, and I swear, like they stole her laugh from Chun-Li's laugh. It sounds almost exactly like Chun-Li's laugh from the Sega Genesis version of Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition, which is, for me personally, that is my favorite fighting game on the Sega Genesis. Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition and Mortal Kombat 2. They just were really, really nice ports. In my opinion, they were superior to their Super Nintendo counterparts. I really liked them. These games, not so much. So allow me to play these terrible games. I can tell you that you don't ever have to play them because they're not worth it. They're very bad. Time Killers is without a doubt the worst game on this entire list. That game is terrible and should not even exist. Primal Rage was great in the arcade, so I can forgive that. This game was great in the arcade, I can forgive that. But I appreciate you watching my videos, and I will see you again really soon. Bye.